Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen here with Yona June Thiessen. Today is Monday, June the 1st. How about June the 1st for June? Yeah, it's good. June the 1st, 2020. It is 4 p.m. New York time, wherever you are in the world. Thanks for joining us for another episode of LOA Today, your daily dose of happy. Louis D'Souza is stuck in traffic at the moment, but he's going to be joining us fairly shortly, which is a good thing, Yona, because he came up with today's topic. We really can't discuss that until he gets here, you know? Yes. It kind of makes it tricky. So, but that's all right, because there are plenty of things to be talking about in the meantime. And you brought up more of a somber one, but it's one that probably needs to be addressed. We haven't addressed it here on the show, the stuff that's been going on in the news. Generally, we try to encourage listeners not to pay any attention to the news. It's not good for you. It's definitely best to stay away. It's not good for your mental health. Not ultimately good for your physical health. But every once in a while, kind of like COVID, it just kind of seeps in, you know.
Yes.
It's just unavoidable. So we have to know how to handle it.
Right.
Especially for those of us who are conscious creators and trying to keep our vibe high.
Exactly.
We've been dealing with one thing that was, in a sense, was designed to keep our vibe low. We've been working really hard to keep it high. Now we got a second challenge coming our way.
I know, right? It's like I saw this meme that said, "You've passed the first level of Jumanji. Now welcome to the second level."
It's like the endless video game. 35 levels later.
Exactly. Oh my goodness, what a year this has been, I tell you.
I started off the year saying that this was the year of 2020, the year of clarity.
Right.
You know, which is an obvious play on words, but I really did feel that way.
Yeah.
I figured a lot of stuff was going to become clear this year, and not quite in the way that I expected, but it is becoming
It has,
clear.
Definitely.
There's a lot of clarity coming out. Yeah, and I guess I shouldn't really be surprised, because ultimately clarity comes not just from knowing what you want, but also knowing what you don't want.
Right. Yes.
And we're getting a lot of that. We're getting a lot of opportunity to really see clearly, okay, you have a very clear choice here with situation X. What do you want to pick? Do you want to pick, the right route, or do you want to pick the left route? Which route works for you?
Yeah, that's how clarity works, right? And you get to see the whole picture, everything, what you want and what you don't want, and then you get to choose.
That's right. Yeah, and that's how we ultimately regain that higher vibration place by picking what feels best. So
exactly.
Let's look at it a little bit more closely. There's been a lot in the news. I don't think we need to really rehash everything that's been going on, but there's a lot of stuff going on. Basically, off an event that happened in Minneapolis with an African American who was murdered by a police officer, and with the assistance of others. And I guess I should say allegedly, because there's no formal charges have been brought yet. But
well, he has been arrested. I don't know what that means. I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah, so. It's always safe in this. Anytime you deal with news, it's always safer to say allegedly.
Right, of course. Although the whole world saw the video. I guess.
Well, also apparently there's been a lot of people so upset that they are traveling long distances to make it clear that they're upset, and so kind of an escalated situation. And now there's some violent aspects to it and so forth. Yeah. I wanted to start off by mentioning something that was good that was happening out of this. I don't know if you heard about it. Flint, Michigan. Have you heard about what happened there?
Yes, with the chief of police there.
Wasn't that cool? It was the sheriff, but took a completely different approach to the whole thing.
Yeah.
He came in with a whole bunch of police in riot gear and kind of spooked the marchers.
Right.
And said, nope, not here to attack you at all. We're here to protect you.
Yes.
And the marchers started to chant, said, walk with us. So he said, sure, I'll walk with you. I'll walk with you all night.
Yeah, and he put down all his gear, and he was walking with them and high-fiving and
selfies together.
Hugging and selfies and everything. It was fantastic. And I'm optimistic that was not the only place something like that was happening, because I've seen pictures of other policemen joining the protesters. Some of them were kneeling with the protesters. Some of them were laying on the ground for 9 minutes with the protesters and everything. So that was really, really good to see. So
I suspect, like you say, it's something that is happening a lot more often than we see in the news. News, of course, is designed to sell advertising.
Exactly.
You focus on the stuff that's most miserable.
Right.
But these are the untold stories.
Yeah.
And they're the ones, they don't just give me hope. They tell me vibration rise. I think that's really what's
yes,
going on this year
yes.
overall. There's a big vibration rise going on.
Yeah, yeah.
Whenever you raise vibrations, there's always fallout
Right. There's
because
always
not
going to be.
everybody's, they're not all raising at the same level. So
Exactly,
there's going to
exactly.
be variation and, oh my
Right.
God, you're higher, I'm lower. This is not good.
Yeah, it's part of the it comes with the territory, as they
That's
say,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is,
But
I think it's good stuff. There's a lot of good stuff coming out.
absolutely. That's how I've been feeling. I in spite of all the negative, first of all, let me say that the media is being called out for focusing on 10% of the protesters who are doing all the bad stuff,
Right.
and making it seem like that's what everybody's doing, because that's absolutely not what's doing at
Right.
all. There's other, thank God we have social media in addition to the mainstream media, because a lot of people on social media have been sharing a lot of good stuff that the mainstream media is refusing to share because, of course, it's not profitable for them. But they're
Right.
sharing, all this peaceful protest, everybody marching together. They're showing majority white people protesting across the country and across the world. And so I think that's one of the amazing things that has come out of this whole idea of solidarity and connectedness and togetherness that it has, gendered, especially among the millennials. They have definitely come out in full force and saying, we are one in support of you, and most importantly, we acknowledge the issue, right, as opposed to denying and gaslighting.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the leaders are trying to do. We acknowledge what's happening. We realize that it is true, and we are here in support of you, and just to bring awareness to this. And I think that's what a lot of Black people in this country and across the world are actually wanting, just for people to acknowledge that this is actually happening. And because there's a lot of pain and trauma and hurt and anger. But at the end of the day, they just want to know that they're heard and that their situation is acknowledged. So I think that has been a real positive that has come out of all of this.
I think everybody wants to be heard. They want to know that their messages are being heard, their cries for help are being heard, and
right.
so forth. And I also, going back to the Flint, Michigan thing and others that are like that, I love the fact that people are finding ways of saying, here's what I prefer.
Mm-hmm,
I like this better. I like to behave this way. I want to think this way. I want to talk this way better.
Right.
This feels better to me.
Yes, exactly.
That to me is like the best thing that's coming out of this, because the more that happens, my goodness, can you imagine what happens when you have a large chunk of the population that starts saying, you know what, I just want to focus on what feels better.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we have our resident, I want to focus on what feels better guru, who has been able to get off of the highways of the London area and join us. And Louis,
welcome.
How you doing? Looking good?
Very good. Just come back from the beach, so.
Oh wow!
Oh, that's a rough gig.
I'm glowing.
Yes, you're very red and rosy right now.
I thought it was just the lighting. Who knew? I mean,
I had such a great day, though. I mean, my gosh, the weather, everything was just so perfect, and it's unbelievable.
Fantastic.
That's a great kind of day to have. But
we were talking about everybody happy, nice cool breeze. The sea was warm. It was really pleasant, not too hot, not cold, beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
That's always nice.
That's really good. We were just talking about current events, which we normally try to stay away from, but today it seemed like a good day to be doing it. And it's a kind of a nice lead into what I had as a note for the topic for the week, which is grace and sacredness.
Right. And I think it's important to talk about the sacredness of human lives in general, but in particular, Black men in America.
When you were talking about,
I have no idea what happened. It's obviously something happened.
Oh, there's been there was an event in Minneapolis. An African American man was killed by a policeman, and there's a whole situation that came out of that. It's led to all kinds of protests, and there's even been some rioting. And there's a lot of stuff going on. Particularly the media really focusing on negative stuff. The president kind of going off the deep end, and a number of things going on, and we were trying to look at some of the positive things that were coming out of it, because there was some really, really good high vibe stuff. I mean, the story that I told just before you came on was about the sheriff in Flint, Michigan, came out with policemen in riot gear and told the marchers he wasn't there to crack down on them. He was there to protect them. And then he ended up marching with them. Yep. And apparently there were other kinds of situations like that that have popped up and have basically raised the morale of a lot of people that were involved.
Yes.
So that vibration raising stuff is pretty important. And so I'm wondering, first of all, can you give us an idea? This is your topic, the grace and sacredness.
Yeah.
What you had in mind for it, because I have a feeling we're going to be able to tie into what we were just talking about, but I got to know more about what you had in mind.
So basically, what do you think the secret says about the law of attraction?
It's rather dry, as a programmer would say. It's very straightforward. They basically say the law of attraction is where you focus on what you like and you get it, and they have a 3-step process for it.
Which very simply is, if you want to manifest things, if you want more money, more bigger house, etc., use the law of attraction.
Right.
Yeah,
that's pretty much it. So,
from our understanding, let's say, of Abraham, I get quite a strong feeling that it's a lot more than that. And 2 words that I put into the law of attraction, although they may not sound LOA-ish, is grace and sacredness. And I wanted to give you a bit of an example of what happened to me. So I had a hernia operation, yes. Not a hiatus. What's the other one?
Hernia.
Yeah, below hernia, the common one. Okay. So I had one of those operations, and I'll just go through the story a little bit. I've had a whole episode on the story, and it's not the same story as the last one.
Oh.
So completely different. Okay. So I found a bulge. I went to the doctor. It was a hernia. We need to have the operation. It's only 20 minutes. Booked it in, and as I went onto the operating table, they start injecting you with the go to sleep stuff. And there was a very powerful thing that came from somewhere inside me, it was like my mind speaking to my body in a way, but it was something deeper, and it was saying, I'm so sorry to put you through this. And it was very, very, very clear and very direct. I was really apologizing. Part of me was really apologizing to my body to putting myself through this. So that was just the beginning. Then when I came out of that, I was very, very, very red around the area where they scraped away my hair, etc. And it looks like I was allergic to whatever they put on, the alcohol or whatever. And then my wound started going a bit septic, and I started getting weaker and weaker and weaker, and I was lying around at home. I could hardly get up or down the stairs. I was absolutely, totally wiped out, and I was wandering around the garden in half a day, hardly being able to do that, when my neighbor saw me, and she's a nurse, and she said to me, Louis, you need to go to a hospital now. And I said, what? Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, actually, I think I agree with you. And she had just taken one look at me over the fence. So I went back to my wife, who's also a nurse, and said, well, I think I should go to the hospital. And she was like, okay. So you'll find if you got a wife for a wife that's a nurse, they're not very sympathetic as general people. They're just not. Right. They deal with other people's stuff all day long, and they do not want it from their partner. So I go to the hospital, and I'm put in the intensive care unit where they monitor me very closely, etc., because I've got a high temperature. I can't touch anything anymore without feeling intense pain. The sensitivity in all my fingers and feet were absolutely off the scale. I couldn't eat anymore. I was getting weaker and weaker and weaker. And that hospital is a nightmare. It was called Mayday in those days, and
Oh,
people
my.
had renamed it to Mayday. Okay, so they've renamed it to Croydon University Hospital. That's how bad the name got.
Why not
The
just call it
renaming of the name.
Just call it the low vibe hospital and be done with it. I mean, come on.
So I was in May die, and I thought I might die, and the guy next to me died, and the way he died was terrible and was handled appallingly, and there was a long conversation, but I don't want to get into all that. So I'm very, very, very weak, okay, and I started for the first time having a yogurt. I managed to eat something, and I go to the nurse. Nobody's around, my family, nobody's around. And at that time, and I said to them, I just need to get outside. I need to get outside. I was at my wit's end, you know. I could hardly get to the toilet. I could hardly stand up. I could hardly walk. But something said to me, get outside. And I didn't realize it, but it was a Sunday. I also didn't realize it that in the hospital grounds is a little chapel. Right. And on this chapel, on the Sunday, they were having a service. So I'm thinking, okay, and I'm hobbling there, and this lady comes outside, sees me, and gets me to a chair and says, do you want to go into the service? I said, no, thank you, but I'd love to sit just outside, because there was a nice bunch of trees, and, you know, there were animals foraging around, squirrels and birds and things, and I was sitting there, and I had what I would call a vision. And I was sent back into a past life where I was a crusader, something like, I can't remember the name of these crusaders. You know, these Christian crusaders where you go out and you fight for Christianity, etc. Mm-hmm. And I was not the best person, and, you know, kind of thing. I probably burnt witches at a stake or something like that. I was not the nicest person, and I'd done really, really terrible things and blah, blah, blah. And it was so clear. Here was the church, and here was nature. And I had to choose between all of this and know what I was going on. And suddenly it was absolute clarity. I said, how do I heal myself? How do I get better? How do I get better? And it said to me, use all the knowledge that you've accumulated about health in your body so far and just go for it. Just go for it. Use every little bit and pieces. And the squirrels were foraging, and they were getting stuff, and the birds were coming down and picking up seeds. I said, use everything. And it was kind of like they were showing me the way. And it was just the most amazing experience. After that, I just felt 1,000 times better, and my energy was boosted. I managed to get back to my bed successfully and happily quite quickly, and I knew I was going to start getting better. I started eating a bit more, you know, I started to get on the mend. I remember that hospital, having to clean my way to the bathroom and to the basin in a hospital. Okay. You know, so I had a shower. I started cleaning myself up. I was still very, very, very weak. And I said to my wife one day, it was probably the next day or the day after, I said to her, I'm going home today. I just know it. I just know it. And she said, what? You know, it's not going to happen. And then they said to me, no, they came to me and said, you're moving out of here. So I said, yeah, I'm going to leave. I just know it. And they said, no, we're moving you to a, you know, not the intensive care, but to the lower care, whatever that is. So, and I was shocked. I said, no, I'm leaving. And she said, no, they're moving you to the other one. So I go there, and I spend half an hour to an hour there, and the doctor comes around, he sees me and all the rest of it. And I said to him, doctor, I want to leave. And he said, well, if you want to leave, just sign yourself out. So I went, signed myself out, and I was home. And for the next 5 days, and this is the point I wanted to bring up, I experienced what I now understand as the vortex. For 5 days, I was in the vortex. Wow. And, you know, I've often jokingly called myself King Louis. And I felt appalled because of the grace, the sanctity of the space that I was in, and the awe-inspiringness of it. I felt totally disgusted and embarrassed that I'd ever called myself that. There was such a sense of so much bigger than me, so much more. You can't describe it. And all these thoughts are piling into my head of things that I can do and achieve and goals. And I was just feeling like so good. You have no idea. So for these 5 days, I was in this incredibly, very, very heightened intellectual state, very great clarity of unprecedented proportion. And, you know, that sacredness which the law of attraction can draw you towards when you start tapping into the vortex is what I'm trying to portray here. And it's just something that I wanted to put across, because once you've experienced it, it's not something you can ever deny or question or be confused about again. You just feel this thing. It's like you're sitting and looking at the entire universe. You're just within awe of the entire gambit of everything that's going on. And it's, as I say, it's no other real words for it, but it's an incredibly humbling experience. And there's a feeling of peace and grace and tranquility and beauty on a level you can't really describe. So, you know, I just wanted to kind of put it in context where the law of attraction is leaning you towards when you start tapping into that vortex. It's just something I really wanted to portray or get across. It's just been important to me.
Yeah, I can see why. Now, was that the first experience that you can consciously remember, having that really high vibe in the vortex, feeling where you really knew you were there?
Well, I had no idea it was called the vortex or this was anything to do with my vortex. And because of that, I missed out on treasures, all those ideas that came to me, because when ideas come to you from the vortex, they're achievable. Okay. And I didn't write them all down. I only got glimpses and bits and pieces afterwards, because I was very, very weak. Don't forget. I was thinking I've gone, you know, I'm not here anymore. So I'm in that incredible place where you're vulnerable to an nth degree. Okay. You know, you talk about vulnerable, but you have no idea until you kind of hit this thing where, you know, you just have to give up everything, absolutely everything, and experience this. So, yeah, it's difficult to describe, but I wanted to kind of get people to understand when they're starting to tap into that vortex, what they possibly will start achieving and experiencing. So,
looking back on it, what was your number one emotional feeling associated with it?
I think reverence and awe.
Okay.
Which I've never experienced like that before, ever.
It's a little bit shocking.
When you tap into source itself, I'm not even going to use the word energy, because that even seems to belittle it. When you tap into source, yeah. It's just so much bigger than we've ever dreamt. You know, you can understand why people who have gone there and come back just have no words for it. It's just nothing. It's indescribable.
That's one of those things that even without that kind of experience, I felt for the longest time we need to develop and expand our verbal database, our words that we have to use to describe high vibration, feeling high vibration experiences. So even though at that particular time in that particular place, you had no words for it, I'm hopeful that if you've had an experience like that since then, or at the next time that you have that experience, you do have more words that come out of it, just because we've been building it up.
Yeah.
We've been learning more.
No, that's true. As you have more and more experiences of that, it's not so. It's like once I started having more and more out-of-body experiences, not such a big deal to tune into those different vibrations. It's a bit different. And things become more commonplace, and then you're able to maybe have more words for them.
I wanted to say that listening to Louis' story and hearing Walt's comment. It reminded me of a conversation that Walt and I had some time ago where you were surprised that my religious experience had a very strong, common emotional aspect to it.
Okay.
You remember that, Walt?
I don't, but that's all right.
Okay.
Tell the story anyway. Maybe I'll remember it at that point.
Yeah. No, we were talking because we were talking about emotions, and I was telling you that, growing up in the church, especially in the Black church, there's a major emotional component to the service, to the worship,
Mm-hmm. Sure.
It's very visible in your singing. You can really feel the emotion. You can absolutely feel it.
I was going to say that the music is one of the tools that they use. But although there are, of course, instances where it's exaggerated. But the thing was, I can't say I've experienced what Louis experienced as far as being in the vortex that deep, but I have had experiences where I was in awe of something
beyond yourself.
Exactly. I have experienced that, and in the Black church, they have this thing where people say that in the Black church they tend to focus on that as with not enough focus on theory and doctrine and cognitive understanding, whereas in the white church, and I'm generalizing here, there's the opposite.
And I think you're very accurate.
Yeah, right. Yes.
As a white.
Right. So there's this dichotomy where in the white church it's very, about the doctrine and the understanding and the cognitive, and everything's quiet. And still,
and you guys that are really in tune with the other side of it think, what are you arguing about?
That's
come on, guys, get it out of your head. Get out of your head, get into your heart.
Exactly. Yes, that's exactly how I felt. I was like, oh, what?
You're missing the whole point.
Attending one of these services, and at the end I was like, that's it? I felt nothing. But
you felt bad because you were going to go to hell.
Well, that's a whole nother issue.
That's another story.
That was the church down the street.
But yeah, there was very much for me growing up that you occasionally you would touch that awe, that sacred, that like you said, there's a very limited word to describe it, but yeah, you do experience that, and yeah, it's kind of strange sometimes. I mean, even now when I listen to some of the music that I listened to growing up, some of the hymns and the gospel music and stuff, I can be taken there, and yeah, it's very very interesting.
I wanted to finish my story off a little bit because the rest of it is quite fun. So 3 months later, I went for a checkup. I'd obviously started mending and all the rest of it, especially after those 5 days. Everything started getting a lot better, but still slow. After 3 months, I was only just at that point. Now, during the last month, I'd been looking for jobs, IT jobs, and I was going for interviews and all the rest of it. And nothing was panning out. Nothing. And I was just like shaking my head. I've been out for so long already. A gap in the IT industry is not great, and all the rest of it. And I go to the Mayday, and I'm sitting there, and I know the first thing is I park my car, and as I park my car, a lady comes up to me and says, "Oh, would you like my parking ticket? It's still got quite a bit of time on it, so you don't have to buy one." And, I said, "Sure, thank you. That's very kind of you." So I put on my dashboard and went in to sit down, and I waited, and eventually the doctor saw me, and something triggered to me because I was telling the doctor this whole story, and he was like, hope he doesn't sue me, look on his face. But his name was fascinating. His name was Distemple.
Oh my.
this temple, that temple. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize this before you operated me and all this, but his name was the temple. And I was like, you know, and that big thing inside me which said, I'm so sorry, my body, that I'm putting you through this temple.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, wow, this is just amazing. And I was like, light bulbs going on. I was saying to him, oh, don't worry. This is the most incredible experience that's ever happened to me in my life. And he's like, what's this guy talking about? I said, no, don't worry. I'm not going to sue anybody or do anything. You know, this is a brilliant, amazing experience. Like, I didn't tell him everything, of course. So I'm suddenly coming out of there and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm worried about the ticket because I never looked what time was on it. So I might have a parking fine. So I go back to my car, move straight to the ticket, pick it up, and I look at the time on it, and it's exactly to the second the time on my car. I was like, oh my God. And then driving home from there to home, I get the mobile phone call. Hey, you've got a job.
Wow.
Ding, 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 ding.
Everything happening. Yeah.
That's a great,
most an amazing experience. And this is another interesting aspect. A hernia by Louise Hay is ruptured relationships. So as soon as something said to me right in the beginning, before I had an operation or anything, something said to me, go check Louise Hay's book on hernia.
Yeah.
And I just had 2 ruptured relationships. One was with a friend of mine in Scotland, whose husband was supposed to do up one of my properties up there. And he just stopped and he stole my money. And so I was trying to speak to his wife, my friend, what's going on here? Can we sort it out? And she cut me off and then he broke up with her a few months later, and he found that out much later. But the whole thing was very complicated. But I had a ruptured relationship with her, and I had a ruptured relationship with my sister. So, then I realized why I had the hernia, and it all tied together. And it was really, really very interesting story. If you listen to the episode where I explained it, it's very clear and very well done.
Yeah.
This is a very summarized version.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing experience, or a series of experiences, really. I mean, it's almost doing it in injustice.
It took about a year to go through all the experiences from beginning to end and to see all the bits and pieces of
it. I would say it's probably fair to say it was life-changing.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. Going back to the name of the doctor, that's one of the other things that's common in the church, where they I grew up referring to the body as the temple of God without really understanding what that meant.
Thinking much about it,
Yeah, exactly. It was just cliche kind of thing. But, now I recognize that, as Louis says, that we have this indwelling of source in all of us. We are all some way an extension of source. And the other thing was, going back to Louise Hay, and it ties in with that book that Josephine had mentioned about the emotion code, where they talk about all these diseases are a manifestation of some kind of blocked energy in one of your organs or body part, and it if not dealt with, can cause things like the rupture and those kinds of issues.
Josie actually asked a question. She says, and she asked it specifically of you, have you done any research on music, the mind, and the heart?
Yes. There's a whole area of music therapy, right? Because, music is one of those forms of energies that fascinatingly enough is able to, and we've probably heard this before, bypass the conscious mind, go straight to the subconscious, right? So they've been using music for all kinds of things. Lately, they've been using it for people, elderly in the nursing homes, to deal with dementia and Alzheimer's and all that kind of stuff. They also use it to help autistic children, because a lot of them, when they can't communicate or relate or understand anything, they are drawn to music, or either listening to the music or playing the music actually has shown a lot of benefits in the research. So they're trying to find way, unfortunately in our schools, whenever there's a budget crunch, that's the first thing that gets cut and so on, but
interesting that you mentioned autism too, because on the autism spectrum, there are a number of different levels of it and so forth. In fact, co-hosts Alex King and Dan Gaynor are both Asperger's.
Okay.
So they're both on the spectrum. And Alex made a comment to me sometime last summer. It was at a point where I had a huge buildup of wax in my ears, so I had gotten my ears cleaned out by an ear doctor and was just blown away. Most of the buildup had been in my left ear. Mm-hmm. The moment he took it out, I was blown away at how loud stuff got. Really, really, really loud. I mean, I'd be doing dishes and I'd put one ceramic dish on top of another one and be clink. It'd be really, really loud. And I described that to Alex one time. She said, "Welcome to my world. That's what it's like to have Asperger's."
Yes, yes.
And it made me wonder, is Asperger's something similar to the experience that you were describing, Louis, where you have this almost overwhelming
sensitivity?
Yeah, very, very high sensitive experience. It sounds similar.
Yeah.
Well, I think it really is, because what it's doing is when you're tapping into source energy, you're getting this huge direct experience of that power that creates worlds. So, it is a lot. It's big. And you're now tuning into that frequency. And the challenge that people have is they feel that they can't deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that the distinction that should be made is that with Asperger's, and of course, there's a spectrum, there is a heightened sensitivity to a lot of these, what we would call material stimuli in the material physical world.
Mm-hmm.
And but not so much on the emotional level, because one of the challenges for Asperger's is that they struggle with understanding emotions. They actually struggle with that. That's one of the biggest challenges. Whereas what what Louis is talking about, there is a more awareness of yes, your physical surrounding and the sounds and the light and stuff, but there's something else you are aware of, something in the immaterial or the non-physical world that you become aware of as well. So there's a little bit of a distinction there.
Well, I'm going to take a wild guess, because I'm not sure how Alex would respond, but I'm going to kind of intuit what I think she might say. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to suggest that she would say it's not that you don't feel the emotion, it's that the emotion is overwhelming.
Yeah. Well, so
much to handle. Right.
Exactly. So it is too much to handle. But what happens with the Asperger's most of them, they don't know how to respond. They don't know. It's overwhelming, and they'll either go crazy, react, or just shut down in a world. Whereas with the spiritual experience, it's more like kind of like an outer body, like you're almost watching yourself going through this a little bit. I mean, I'm sure there are exceptions, and maybe Alex is having both.
I wouldn't be surprised.
The Asperger's as well as
I'm not surprised by anything Alex tells
the
me.
vortex, right? Exactly. But for most of the children, especially who are on the spectrum, it's a major challenge for them.
Well, probably more of a challenge for the parents trying to deal with it.
Yes, because they bring all the issues to the forefront.
Oh, of course.
So Abram's statement about sensitive people is very interesting. Because Abram says that if you're very sensitive, you've got a very strong connection to source. And that's not to be poo-pooed. A lot of us would want a stronger connection with source.
Yeah.
But it's this inability to kind of know what to do with this connection. Because life in general doesn't teach you that you should or could or would have a strong connection with source and what to do with it. well, we just, we normally don't have it, so we don't have any books on it, and we don't really know what to say about it, so
Yeah.
go away.
And it's really bad in that not only do we not know how to deal with it, so we don't teach these children who have these challenges how to deal with it, but it's almost stigmatized, right?
Taboo,
there are stories
yeah.
of children who are labeled crazy, schizophrenic, or some kind of mental illness, and
ADHD or one other label or another.
And try to medicate them, and it just makes it worse, Yeah. So
I think it's also the case that we could learn more from them too.
Yeah,
exactly.
They're trying to tell us something. They're trying
if they allow that force energy to come through them and don't come into them and stop and get blocked,
right?
It's like letting it flow, let it flow, let it flow.
Yeah.
And then, of course, people will say, yeah, but then they'll start killing people or blah, blah, blah.
Well,
so,
there's that story I shared about this girl who thought she was schizophrenic for many years and was institutionalized and all kinds of crazy stuff. And she somehow, after, rejecting all the traditional, conventional medicine, she traveled to, I think it's South America or something, where
somebody that works with energy.
With shaman. And they realized that this woman had an amazing power. She was, and she became one of their spiritual leaders because she had wisdom and vision and insight and all kinds of amazing, abilities that was being stifled. So yeah, there's a lot, I think, that we can learn from them.
The interesting thing, I know a very sensitive person, and this is what I said to her. I said to her that you are so sensitive, and that means you have a strong connection with Source. And you know what her words to me were straight after that? Mm-hmm. She said, that's the most beautiful thing anybody has ever said to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we could give.
And a statement like that from that woman was unbelievable. Okay.
Yeah.
It really touched you. That's fabulous. Yeah. I do think there's a lot we have to learn from people who have these. I won't even think of them as conditions or whatever. I could consider them special abilities.
Yes.
Special abilities, nice way of looking at it. Yeah.
I've always maintained that. In fact, there's a push to relabel them from disabled.
What you don't want labels to what you do want labels.
To differently abled. Some of the psychiatrists and psychologists who work with these kids are wanting us to use the term differently abled as opposed to disabled. But yeah, I think there's a lot.
That whole disabled stuff needs to go out the window, no doubt. Yeah, I think about what Alex told me and realize that, anybody who has, she's relatively mild on the Asperger's autism spectrum, but just her being able to express to me that that's her life. She feels and experiences really intense, physical 5 sense stimuli on a regular basis. Yeah. Like, wow, that there's information in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Information that I may not even totally grasp yet, but I did have that one experience, and that one experience gave me a clue. Like, I don't know how I could express to somebody else how loud those sounds were, other than to say it was like having an amplifier on everything in the room, so that the volume was up at 10.
So, Walt, would you say this is what happened? So, your ear was blocked, so your ear became very acute, trying to hear, and it became more and more sensitive to trying to pick up everything. And then when the block was taken over, it was like, oh, yeah, that's too loud.
Yeah. So that's common with autistic and Asperger's children, in that light and sound and heat and even texture and taste is so exaggerated for them in ways that we can't understand, that it makes them feel like it's going to hurt them, and some of them will react very strongly and become, quote unquote, reactive. I don't want to use any negative terms, but and that those reactions then bring out negative reactions in the people around them. So.
I go back to my crystal experience I said last week, when I put them under the pillow and I had these incredible colors and visible dreams of unprecedented proportion, and I got scared and I dug a hole in the garden and put my crystals. Actually, I was speaking to my sister yesterday, and she was saying to me, I remember that story.
Oh, really?
I remember when it happened to you and you told it to me. I was like, yeah, somebody knows my past.
Right. It's not all in your head.
Well, that's part of that need to be heard. We talked about that at the top of the show. People right now needing to be heard. Well, I would say that anybody who has, and I'll call them enhanced abilities, anyone who has these enhanced abilities needs to be heard that, yes, we recognize you have these enhanced abilities, and good for you. You're, like Louise said, you're connected to source. You're in a good place. Oh, wow. This is something to celebrate. Yeah. That's a different message, I think, than people often get, and it's a good one.
Absolutely. But, there are researchers who are trying to understand people with those different abilities. I remember the story Mark and I shared not too long ago. This boy, he's autistic. It's probably 20-something, 21. But he's an incredible musician, right? He can play anything, jazz, classical, just by listening. Right. And so these neuroscientists decided to study his brain. So they put him in the MRI and they hooked up all these tubes to his brain. And what they found is, so they subjected him to different, things, stimuli, pictures, words, thing. But when they turned on music, his brain lit up. But what was interesting was, so he's nonverbal. No, is he nonverbal? No, I think he was. He was blind. He was also blind, autistic and blind. And when they turned on the music, the area in his brain that should have been involved in seeing came alive. So he's using that part of his brain that should be dedicated to sight and interpreting what you see to interpret music. So in other words, he can actually see music, and it was so incredibly amazing.
So he had taken the part of the brain that uses the visual input stimuli, and converted it into an audio stimuli recognition part, which is great.
So, and I think a lot of these differently abled children do that in some way or another,
But just imagine, I'm just putting a thought into my head. Just imagine we could channel our entire brain to function as sound if we wanted to, and then channel it all into sight to see clearer, channel it into speaking to be more better orator. So it just brings up ideas, doesn't it? Well, if we have more control.
Making it more joke, but actually, I think there's a seriousness to that. I think, actually, the answer is yes, we can.
Well, in fact, that has already been shown that people who have strokes and so some part of their brain dies and they can't, for a while, they can't use it. So sometimes that part of the brain never actually regenerates, but other parts of the brain start taking over that function, or that, so other parts of the brain starts growing and developing and becoming more differentiated and complicated to take on the part of the brain that died. So, there are people who who lost their ability to see or to hear, and other parts of their brain take over or become heightened, and it actually shows physical changes in the brain as a result of that. So it's very fascinating. The human body is so amazingly adaptable, but specifically the brain and brain plasticity is a whole area of neuroscience that is very new.
And very interesting and exciting, because I think what's happening there is science is kind of mirroring what's also happening in other areas of the culture.
Yes.
Recognizing that there's something else going on here, and the rest of the culture is recognizing, oh, look, they're looking at the thing that we're all seeing and that we're experiencing here. There's like a not dual, but there's a mutual experience going on there, which is kind of cool.
I want to say before the show ends that, as far as recognizing things, you all mentioned that 2020 was the year of clarity. And it's amazing how, just like with Louis' experience that started off with this horrible hernia and hospitalized in Mayday or Mayday. You know, that,
Croydon University
I
Hospital.
know, right? Croydon University Hospital. That, some of these things that are, on the surface, negative, so much beautiful things can come out of it. You know, like for me,
Exactly.
the pandemic, which, I acknowledge has been a horrible experience on so many levels, but for me, it has been a time of growth. I mean, you know, I get to spend all day with my husband.
I can
Which
tell you
I
some
think
people are finding that challenging.
I know, right? But that's been amazing for us, you know, and, you know, bringing it home to what's happening in the country right now, you know, with this, protest that's going on for, you know, the killing of Black men by, officers in the police force in America. There's a lot. I mean, I see the pain that, and I know it to some extent, you know, because Tuesday, I think it was, I had a breakdown, you know. Unfortunately, my husband was there to listen and understand, and that made such a huge difference. You know, I didn't realize it would, because I'm thinking, I don't have a Black son, but I just having been able to talk to him was such a huge relief. But on top of that, I'm able to see, as Walt was mentioning, all the good things that are coming out of this protest, the awareness, the togetherness, the support. I mean, I you know, there's one thing in particular, the hacktivist group Anonymous. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but they have not just threatened, they've actually acted on some of those threats to reveal members of the KKK who are also members of the police force. And they have done so already, and they're threatening to do some more of that. You know, they went away for a while, for a few years. And with this protest, they suddenly reappeared and are, you know, they took down the website for the Minneapolis Police Department, as well as the Minneapolis State Department, the Minnesota State Department. So they're letting them know that they are in support of these people who are oppressed and who feel like they are been disenfranchised and don't have a voice. And for me, I think that's a wonderful thing. So
Jeffrey's been making some comments in the live stream, and I don't have a direct way to connect in, but I think it connects into what we've been talking about indirectly. So I want to see what you guys think. He said this that this was his research brain working. He wasn't really quite sure what he meant by what he said, but what he said was, I wonder if the world slowing down has decreased the amount of instances of overstimulation. And I read that, it kind of caught me, and I said, well, I'm curious, what do you mean when you say the world is slowing down? Many people feel the world is speeding up. And he says, well, I guess we're all experiencing different realities.
Very much so.
Very insightful.
Yeah.
And very accurate. And it kind of makes me wonder, when we often talk about, like, the situation that's been going on here in the U.S. the last few days. Yeah. We talk about as if everybody's having the same experience.
Right,
what if
right.
they're not? What if everybody?
Exactly. Because I know there's a lot of my friends, my white friends, they refuse to believe that this is a problem. They think, oh, the police hates everybody equally. But, you know, the research, the data shows that Black men are stopped and frisked and arrested, you know, 3-4 times the rate that white men are. They are incarcerated.
And if you believe in the law of attraction, are they not expecting it more?
Oh, yeah.
Whether that's true or not, Louis, you have to first acknowledge that is the case, right?
I'm happy to acknowledge it's the case.
Right. So
there's no argument with that at all.
Right.
Why is it the case?
The thing is that, you know, you and I can sit here and discuss that. We are proponents of a different ideology. But for those who are not, we have to, well, maybe not. But, you know, we have to recognize that there are people for whom, as Walt was saying, their experience is different from ours, right? That's the beginning. You know, if we want to enlighten them and show them a different way, we have to first acknowledge where they are as far as their understanding and their experience and their reality is, right? That's the first step. And so, yes, they may be as you say, attracting it to the experience. But the fact is that it is.
You will find that those people that are more against it land up getting the experience more often than those in your community who don't. And that is just proving the law of attraction is the way it works. When you really say, I don't want something, you draw more of it to you. It's as simple as that.
Well, there are others who are actually wanting justice and equality, and that's what they're focusing on. So that's what they're marching for, and that's what they're working towards. So yeah, there are those who are, might be experiencing, and as Walt mentioned, there are the protesters, and then there are 10% of those people who are trying to discredit the movement by looting and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. But the fact remains that there's a main core of people who are actually trying to get systems to change, because it is a systematic issue. It's not just something
coming from South Africa. You must understand that the whites were dominant.
Mm-hmm.
But now you must understand that the blacks are dominant.
Okay.
Had a complete reversal, and what the whites were doing to the blacks are now doing to the whites. And it's a circular thing, it's the fact that it hasn't turned yet in America yet, I might add, is just another thing. And, these things turn.
Blacks don't make up the majority of the population like they do in South Africa. That's one thing.
That could change.
True, it could. But right now it isn't the case. And secondly, a lot of, even some of, in fact, I saw a tweet from Trevor Noah,
love him.
And he was actually, voicing his support for the protesters, and then warning that this is exactly what some of the powers that be were trying to do when Black South Africans were trying to demand equality. They were trying to discredit the movement such that it was reflected negatively in the country and across the world, which is what is happening. But the point is, there's a majority of people who are still going about it the right way. They're lending their support. They're showing that they in support, and they're together. They're connected with the Black community, and they're doing whatever they can. Some of them are simply asking, yes, we see the situation. How can we help make it better? And that's, I think, what's beautiful about the whole thing.
Love it, because that's people that are focused on what they want, and they're trying to get it. And they are getting it. Absolutely no problem with that. I think it's beautiful.
Yeah. That's what's so cool about what we talked about at the top of the show, because we talked about an instance in Flint, Michigan, where exactly that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Where protesters, they were very clearly, they must have been in a higher vibe place. They were asking for what they wanted. They had their attention more off of what they didn't want and onto what they did want, and they got more of what they wanted.
Right.
They got more of what they desired. And it just illustrated beautifully that it really does work. You really can.
It does. And a lot of the police officers are actually admitting that this is a problem in their own department. So, going around, like Louis saying, that attracting that they're attracting what they don't want because that's what they focused on. That, while that may or may not be true, I don't think that helps, because it kind of perpetuates the gaslighting that has been done for decades, where they've made to feel like they are the problem, they are they're causing the problem, and we may acknowledge that, but trying to tell these people that at this time may not be the best message.
Yeah, you have to be in a space to be able to handle
Exactly.
And a lot of people are in a space right now where they, like you said, they just need to hear someone say, I hear you. I hear what you're saying. I feel what you're feeling.
That's all they want. That's all they want. Yes, you're right.
My understanding is that when and I'm going to use the word specifically, a tribe focuses more on unity of the whole. Mm-hmm. In this case, I'm going to use the planet. Mm-hmm. You could say the galaxy. But when you're trying to look...
Oh, go for the universe. Why not?
Yeah, come on. The whole universe. When they're more focused on the whole, they're more aligned. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to use the word spiritual. They're more aligned. And when they focus more on individuals, then they're more out of alignment. So.
Yeah. Well, this is definitely now we are focusing as a whole, because you got the whole country mobilized. You have the other parts of the world. You have other countries and cities where people. I mean, I'm seeing London and Berlin and Iran, and all these people are uniting and saying, yes, we see and we understand the plight of African Americans, and we join with them.
Clarity is a very high vibration place, as we've talked about before, and Louis has made it pretty clear that grace and sacredness are two other words that help describe that high vibration place. And we are really gaining clarity in a lot of different ways this year. And it's not always easy getting there. I mean, that's part of the nature of attracting new higher vibe stuff. It has to get in past the lower vibe stuff. That's why we call them blocks. That's why we call them
dealing with those kind of situations gracefully.
Yeah.
With respect to others.
Absolutely.
Is where we need to go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we are not getting that from the leadership, and I'll leave it there.
How cool, though, that we're getting there without the leadership.
True. Absolutely.
I mean, that's the best part.
Exactly.
Yes.
Well,
I just want to mention that leadership was found in his bunker on Saturday night after boasting that he was safe and protected.
Yeah. That was an interesting article.
That was hilarious, I think, but that's a whole nother.
As opposed to Gandhi, who walks out in the streets.
Right, exactly.
Right. No clothes on.
We're telling him to go out there and meet with them, talk with them, find out what they want, and try to appease. Instead, he tried to stir things up and call his base to come and counter protest, which.
Or as the sheriff from Flint, Michigan said, "Sure, I'll walk with you all night."
Right, exactly. Yes, how beautiful that was. That was amazing. Yeah. Yeah, and unfortunately, that has been.
I feel so out of it. I have no idea what you guys are on about. I can just pick up pieces.
Yeah, the story.
Because I just don't watch the news.
Yeah.
Well,
but
like
that's a beautiful story about the Flint, Michigan.
We normally recommend people not watch the news. It's just that here in the U.S., this is news. It was kind of like the COVID.
You can't not watch. Your friend tells you.
It's there. It seeps in even if you're not watching. So.
Yeah. And I have friends who are mothers of Black sons, and they are in anguish right now. I'll just say that.
Well, fortunately, there are people who are climbing out of the anguish and choosing the better feeling thoughts. You know what? Absolutely. I'm thinking that's going to start kind of influencing other people.
Yes.
Ones who are ready for it, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. That's
I'm trying to do my part as far as that is concerned, as much as I can.
So
stay in that happy place, guys.
Right. Well, grace and sacredness definitely fit in. So thank you for bringing that up. That was a good topic for the day.
All right. Do we have a topic for next week, or?
Well, I'm sure we'll have that. I mean, all I have to do is just wait 3 minutes after the podcast. Louis has something for us, or you do.
That's true. I can always come up with a topic.
Between the two of you, I never worry about Mondays. I mean, it's just not.
We really don't need a topic. We'll make one.
we got this covered.
Invented as we go along.
Yeah,
so thank you much, guys.
Has some more Mayday stories.
Yeah. No, the proper name is Mayday. Mayday.
What is it? What's the right?
Croydon University
Hospital. Yeah, I think remember that when you described this video that you say Croydon.
I think I'll skip that on my tour of Europe. Thank you much, guys. Thank you, live streamers. Thank you to our podcast listeners as well. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Okay,
goodbye.